Hey everyone, this is Ingrid and Penny and Mike and Vanessa on the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook Live for March. And we have a very exciting Facebook Live for you today because March is International Fraud Prevention Month. Believe it or not, that's actually a thing. So today we are focusing on preventing fraud in small businesses. And we are very excited to have a special guest star with us today. Mike from Finagraph is going to be talking with us on how we can use technology to more effectively prevent fraud. So before we dive in really quick, I want to define fraud because I know that some people, might not be as familiar with this. This is actually unfortunately common. Fraud is basically stealing from your company. Anytime somebody takes something that isn't theirs without asking, that is stealing. And stealing within a business we call fraud, and it can take a lot of different forms. And there's lots of different kinds of fraud within business, and we're going to cover just a couple of those. The main thing is that in order for fraud to happen in a business, there's got to be three things present. Motivation, which is a perceived need, opportunity, somebody being able to get away with it, and rationalization. How do I justify that behavior? And as business owners, the main thing that we can do is eliminate the opportunity for fraud. And Mike's going to give us some really cool tools for how to eliminate that opportunity and how to see it early. So thanks so much for joining us, Mike.
Hey, Ingrid, Penny, Vanessa. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Nice to see you again.
Hey, this is our first time together, Penny. I'm super excited about that. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh, it's really wonderful. You're a great guest to have for Fraud Prevention Month, no doubt.
Well, you know what's funny about that is that most people that know me knew that my first job before getting into software and getting into small businesses, I was a state trooper. So fraud is something that I had some real experience with on the other side of the coin, which is catching bad guys. So let's talk about some of that.
Yeah. Did you work with fraud prevention when you were a cop?
Mainly I was chasing taillights, giving speeding tickets, but but yeah, we actually had some fraud cases and even some internal burglaries, and things like that were happening. So what I thought we would do is talk about today is just some of the ways that you can be, committed fraud against in your business, and what are some ways to spot it.
All right. Well, that sounds great.
So, Penny, you were talking about something that you had a year ago in your business.
Yeah, that's right. So most of you know that I own a pie shop called Penny's Pies, and we make all sorts of great pies. And I have a few employees. And last year, I had an employee who I trusted her a lot. She was a great employee. She worked out very well. She was with me for probably 9 or 10 months. And but then after a while, I started noticing that the cash registers weren't lining up quite right, and I wasn't quite sure how that was happening. And I talked to everybody about it, and there was nothing. But anyway, it turned out in the end that I found out she was stealing money from the cash register. Like, how do you do that?
It takes a certain person to be able to do that, Penny, and I'm so awful sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So obviously we had to let her go, but I feel like I didn't really learn a whole lot from that interaction because I trusted her beforehand. And how do you know if someone's going to do that when you hire them, right? So what sort of things could I put into place now to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah. Hey, great question. I tell you, and Ingrid, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in.
Go for it, Mike.
All right. Basically what you've explained is you did the important first step, right? It's about analyzing data. It's about analyzing the things that you think and expect to happen. And you identified an anomaly right off the bat. And that's the thing. When things don't seem as they are, that should be cluing you into maybe there's something more to look at. So, you said, hey, it wasn't lining up.
And that anomaly is the cash register not seeming right? Is that what you mean?
That's right. Hey, you say I sold 5 pies. It only looks like I had money for 3. That's the first thing that something's going on.
Fantastic.
Go ahead.
So, Mike, what are some ways that we can use technology to spot those anomalies early?
Well, Ingrid, I think it starts with, first of all, identifying where data lies in your business, right? And we all have it. And sometimes you don't think about it as data, but, everybody goes to accounting, financial, and those type of things. But really, there's other things. There's human resources data. There's customers. There's vendors. There's internal communications between your own employees. There are things that are happening inside your business that give you clues that something isn't quite right. And that's one of the things, identifying what doesn't look right, because if you can do that, you eliminate 90% of the haystack looking for the 10% of fraud.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so what are some tools we can use to do that?
Well, I mean, some of the basic tools are, your cash register receipts, just as you've done. Sometimes if you have somebody else doing your books, if you have a bookkeeper, if you have an accountant, or you have some new employees that have access to cash, being able to look for gaps in what should be there, missing information, someone that is trying to commit fraud from a receivable standpoint or a payable standpoint might not put in a physical address, or they might not put in a tax ID for your customer or your vendors. Those are the first indicators that that's not a real transaction. So, you should look deeper.
Okay.
Ingrid, what have you experienced? What are some things you've maybe saw in your practice?
The main thing that I found as far as eliminating the opportunity is the recognition that trust is not an internal control. And unfortunately, we're people. We want to connect with each other. We want to be able to trust each other. And it's important to make sure that we can still trust. We also need to verify. And that goes doubly with our accounting professionals, our bookkeepers. So in a small business, making sure that you're not giving away the keys to your business, particularly say, the usernames and passwords for your online banking. It's amazing. Just a couple weeks ago, I went to the bank and I had opened a new checking account recently and I got the debit card in the mail and I wanted to update my PIN, and I thought that I could do that in the branch if they had a little PIN thing at the counter. And I was amazed when I got to this little local bank and the teller said, I can do that. What's your current PIN number? And I kind of looked at her and I said, did my bank teller just ask me for my PIN number? And the manager was on top of that in an instant.
Wow.
And I was like, clearly this was this person's first day or something, and they did not know that is not how this is done. Never, ever give your PIN number to anyone. And that goes the same for your username and password to your online banking, because that information gives other people access to your money.
Right.
And your accounting professional should never have access to your money. That's like putting the rabbit in charge of the lettuce. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, of course. And I like how you brought up trust is not. That's why you have all the information. The more information you can gather about a specific process, the better it's going to be for you, right? So, I mean, gaps in dates, gaps in check numbers, gaps in, anything, right? At least point you in the right direction. So trust is a big one. And to me, trust is the evidence of integrity over time. So, the more often you say what you're going to do, and I believe you, the more trust we have.
I love that. Trust is the evidence of integrity over time. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I was wanting to go grab my notebook.
Excellent. And that's also one of the reasons why it hurts so much when that trust is broken, because over time you've built up so much.
Penny, you were so right.
Yeah.
You were so right.
Yeah. Well, and back in those times, like a year ago when I discovered all this, I'll admit we had some issues with our inventory. We weren't necessarily keeping track of all the pies and all the ingredients and things like that. And so occasionally, like what actually happened here is some pies were being made without the ingredients being accounted for. I mean, we were accounting for most of the pies, but we had extra pies, and then they would sell, and she would just pocket some of the money, and that, I realized that after talking to Ingrid and Vanessa about it, because they're my bookkeepers, and they do a really good job of helping me keep on top of those sorts of things.
Aw, thanks, Penny.
Yeah.
And Penny, you just described one of the most common, fraud schemes out there. It's inventory fraud. And basically, one of the best ways to catch that is when your beginning balances or your ending balances don't line up. That's an indication you should ask some questions about where's the inventory going, because we wrote the checks, it came into the building, what happened to it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely right.
So how do Finagraph and Flight help with this?
Well, if you look at three things that we do now, Finagraph is the company, Flight is our brand new product, and it's designed to point out anomalies. So when you have thousands of things that you're doing and you're baking your wonderful pies and you're dealing with your customers, we're, really checking your back. We've got your back, looking for those anomalies. And even though it may not be fraud, we're going to point it out to you saying, did you see this, right? Like, here's a new vendor. That's a way to commit fraud, is bring in new vendors, or they bring in new customers that you're not aware of. We're at least going to tell you they exist. Are they real? That's the next question you ask yourself. Is this a real customer or not?
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the ways that we're doing, is pointing out anomalies. The other thing is because it's like a Facebook-style feed, Flight is, when you see anomalies, you can comment right on the spot. So you're not going to wait for 30 days or 90 days to see something. We're showing you that day, and you can take action that day and not let fraud become a big problem. You catch it when it's a small one.
Okay, so is Flight something that integrates with my bookkeeping software? Because I use QuickBooks, of course, and does Flight integrate with that?
I'd like to say, if you have QuickBooks, you need Flight.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a great endorsement.
Yeah, there you go. So if you have QuickBooks, you need Flight. And so we're looking for anomalies. We're a communication hub. My favorite feature right now is a cash flow calendar. So if you can see the leak in your company, this is what we're doing. And not a cash flow calendar like, oh, I send an invoice on, January 1st. I should get the money on 30 days later, net 30. This is analyzing the payment behavior of every single customer and even yourself, and using artificial intelligence, which means we're going to make predictions about when things come in. So if it doesn't line up, we're going to alert you to, hey, this doesn't seem right. Take a look, Penny.
That is so nerdy cool. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
like we were talking about, trust but verify, it eliminates the opportunity, because the main thing is that if people know that you're watching and there's not a chance for people to steal from you, then they're not going to be able to commit fraud, and the temptation to do so won't be there. The analogy that I like to use is, hey, quick show of hands for those of us who are on the video, who occasionally drives, maybe 5 miles over the speed limit? Once in a while, kind of, sort of, maybe. Come on, Penny.
I don't drive.
So, but at the same time, I doubt that very many of us regularly drive 40 miles over the speed limit. What's the difference? It's both illegal, right, to drive 5 miles versus 40 miles over. And the difference is a culture of permissiveness. We know that we're not likely to get pulled over from driving just 5 miles over, so we see how far we can push that limit. And in our businesses, if we've created a culture of permissiveness, it makes it so that people think they can get away with things, and they'll try certain things. And it may be at first innocuous things like, oh, they won't mind if I take a pen or two home, or a pad of Post-it notes, little bits of office supplies here and there. But over the course of having more and more permissiveness, it goes from a pad of Post-it notes to $10 out of the register to, oh, I wonder if anyone's going to notice if I take more and more and more. And that really shifts things in your business, because people often will see how much they can get away with. It's kind of sad that people, think that they can just steal. But unfortunately, a very big majority of people, will commit penny theft if the opportunity is there.
Petty theft!
Not penny theft, petty theft.
Oh, petty theft.
So it's important to make sure that within our businesses, we have a zero tolerance policy. If anyone is caught stealing anything, regardless of the reason, that everyone knows that there's a zero tolerance policy. If anything is stolen, that is an immediate fireable offense. There's no warning. If you steal, you're gone, especially in an accounting firm. You don't have accountants that steal. That's just not an okay thing.
No, not at all. Hey, and I like what you're saying there, and that wraps it right back to your initial definition of fraud, right? What you're trying to do as a business owner is take away that fraud triangle, the opportunity, the motivation, and the rationalization for committing fraud. And we do that by having good controls, by having multiple people involved with a monetary process. And just taking away people's, will to want to steal from you, right? So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we can do best. And I think, Penny, at your price, John, there's probably some opportunities that you can do that with, right? And so some of that is just identifying the red flags. And at Finagraph, what we've done with Flight is we built in the red flags. We're members of, the ACFE, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and we work very closely with them to help business owners like you, Penny, identify what are the red flags to look for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what types of fraud are there? I mean, we've talked about a couple: inventory fraud and, of course, direct stealing from the cash register. What else is there? Like, I mean, time card fraud I've heard of, right?
Yeah, right. There's employee fraud. I mean, with time card fraud, there's a such thing as a ghost employee, where I've actually created an employee and I'm making a paycheck out to them. And one of the ways you can spot ghost employees is there won't be any deductions or there won't be a Social Security number. It's just a paycheck that goes out. You're going to look for things like round numbers. Those are checks I always look at because very rarely have I ever gotten a check with a round number. So,
that's true.
Yeah, right. It's always like 1762. So I mean, it's very rarely round numbers. There's a such thing, Penny, as billing fraud, where I commit a fake vendor, but it's really myself. Where I'm making myself for services performed back to the company. And what you're going to look for is, hey, does this company have a PO address, or is it the same address as one of my employees? Right? I mean, it can be that simple. So you're just looking for things that are just it doesn't seem right? It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And that's what Flight does.
That's what Flight does, yeah. I mean, we're building in more and more of these red flags. And again, not every time you see this, it's fraud, but at least it points you in the right direction to take a look.
So you said a while back about having multiple eyes on it, many people looking at it. Would it be safe to say that Flight is kind of like having a bunch of extra eyes looking on it in addition to employees?
You've got the power of Finagraph behind you.
Yeah. Well, and it's really nice that those eyes are artificial intelligence. They're robots. They're impartial. One really common type of fraud is corruption and collusion fraud, where you might have multiple people in it together and you think that they're checking each other, but actually they're both helping each other steal from you. And things like that get really scary. Another really common fraud, actually, I want to make sure we get the last few minutes on here to make sure to note some tools. One of the most common kinds of fraud in small businesses, and I want to give a shout out to another one of our favorite apps and tools, is time card fraud. And apps like T-Sheets really help to eliminate time card fraud. That's actually how T-Sheets got started, was making sure that employees couldn't pad their time cards, because it's amazing how much money businesses waste and lose by having employees just add 5-15 minutes here and there in their time cards. But that adds up over the course of weeks, months, and years to millions of dollars out the door. And it is astonishing how many employees will try to get away with just rounding up 5 minutes here and there. It's stealing. It is stealing to do that.
Right. Well, absolutely. And even stealing, one of the things most people don't think about is like if you have employees that get commissions, sometimes they'll create fake customers where that bill never gets collected. So, I mean, your AR aging report point out, hey, this is an uncollectible bill. It's been on the books for 70, 80 days, and this customer doesn't exist. So that's one of the things you can look for as well.
Yeah. So I want to make sure we've got just a couple minutes left. I want to make sure that we get some good solid tools out to our audience here so that they know where to go to get some more information. One article that I want to point out that has some potentially really good information for everyone is a basic article on internal fraud that I wrote that's on betweenwallandmain.com. If you go to betweenwallandmain.com and just search in the search window for the word fraud, you will find my article plus a couple of other articles by other accounting professionals about fraud and how to prevent fraud in your small business. So that's one really great resource where you can just find more information. And Mike, I would also love it if you would tell us where we can get some more information about Flight and maybe even a promo code.
Yeah, actually, absolutely, yeah, get it out. Yeah, you can get Flight. Just try it out, right? I mean, I would, if you have QuickBooks, you should try out Flight. It's getflight.com, DFLIGHT.com. And if you're setting up your trial account and you like Ingrid and you like Penny, we actually have a promo code with our partner program. If you use the promo code Penny, PENNY, that's you.
Hey, I'm a promo!
You're a promo.
It was on my bucket list.
Glad it can help. That actually gives you $5 off the monthly subscription, and and more importantly, you get a tool. If it detects fraud, it's going to save you money, save you time, show you the anomalies, and really help out your business.
Excellent. And so does it work equally well for large businesses versus small businesses?
Yes, because it's based on transactions, right? It's not based on industry averages. It's not based on ratio analysis. It's about cash in and cash out. So that's what Flight does, is it just helps you make sure that you're not leaking cash or that you're getting all the money you can be.
And how about solopreneurs?
Oh, sure. Again, it's about a cash transaction. So Flight is actually agnostic to size. We do say use QuickBooks. So I mean, right now it's a QuickBooks type app. So yeah, use QuickBooks. If you do that, you can use Flight.
All right.
Love it.
Sounds wonderful.
Fantastic. And of course, leaving with one final tool, if anybody has any questions, feel free to post them in the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook group, and feel free to tag me and Penny and Vanessa and Mike, especially if you have any questions about Finagraph or Flight. We would love to answer those questions for you and make sure that you're getting pointed the right direction in your business. So fantastic. Thanks so much, Mike, for joining us. It's so great having you here on the Ask a Bookkeeper show. And
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Penny. Let's hang out.
One more thing. Later this month, Mike and I are also going to be on the QBox webinar, which is called Desktop Time. And I'll be posting that link in the Ask a Bookkeeper Facebook group. So we'll be getting a little bit more in depth, because that's going to be a full-length hour-long webinar with the team from QBox talking about tools for preventing fraud. So feel free to join us for that too. Great. Thanks, you guys.
Appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks, Mike. Have a great day, everybody.
See you soon.
Bye. Bye.